This session highlights two iconic brands' ESG journeys and the strategic contribution of communications. It's going to be a great session, so please join me in welcoming our speakers to the stage. Jessica Mendelowitz, Managing Director of Purpose at Ketchum, Liliana Esposito, Chief Corporate Affairs and Sustainability Officer at the Wendy's Company, Katie Boylan, EVP and Chief Communications Officer at Target Corporation, also our Chair of Jury for our Purpose Awards, and last but not least, Mike Doyle, President and CEO of Ketchum, who will be our moderator for the session. Welcome, and please come up on stage.
To thank these two incredible individuals for the privilege of their partnership, and to thank Jessica for choosing Ketchum and for doing so for so long and making us stronger. So thank you for that. We are limited in time. It's an aggressive agenda today, and we know that, so we're going to stick to the topic, the incredibly important topic in the relationship between and among executives at the C-suite level and the study of, practice of, and leadership in sustainability and ESG, and these three incredible leaders are expert at that. I'm going to start the questions actually with Katie and Liliana. We'll go, Katie, you first. Okay. Let's all get your perspective. Target Forward, incredibly bold and impressive mission, really. Talk to us a little bit about how Target Forward is integrated across the entire enterprise.
Yep, happy to. Well, and I want to relay my thanks. Thank you for inviting me here, and thanks to you and your entire team for all that you do on behalf of Target. The partnership has been just outstanding since day one. So yes, you mentioned Target Forward, which is what we call our sustainability strategy at Target. And for us at Target, being very, very closely connected to the community is something that we have long stood behind. It's been a part of who we are really since the day we opened our doors decades ago. But it was just about 18 months ago when we really hit an inflection point. And what happened then was a really fantastic conversation at our leadership team level as we were setting our enterprise strategy for the next 3 to 5 years. And the question that we put on the table, and ultimately the great discussion, really flowed from a place of deciding if we wanted to elevate our commitment to using our size and scale to benefit people and planet as one of our 6 key strategic pillars. And that's a lot of corporate speak, but in essence, we do a lot of work to be really, really clear on what we believe are going to be the critical drivers of our business. And we only select a few areas of focus, and it's all, of course, in the spirit of prioritizing for our enterprise team. And so through the course of this discussion, we decided that yes, the sustainability work does deserve to be elevated as one of our key strategic pillars. It is work that stands to not only differentiate Target, but to move the business forward. And so with that decision, that was a huge signal that then was sent to the organization as a whole that it was time, no matter where you sat at Target, to fully embrace sustainability, fully embrace the Target Forward strategy, and start to put it in motion, to start to operationalize it. And that's the work that is very much underway now.
Does this work? Is that okay? I'm going to first of all, thank you, Katie, for the answer. I'm going to lift a couple of the words you said, differentiated, which is important, and really enterprise-wide and taking a long view. And Liliana asked you the same about good done right at Wendy's. What have you done? It's been around a little bit longer than Target Forward has. If you'll pardon the pun, what have you and your fellow executives done to keep it fresh at Wendy's? Silver platter. Silver platter.
Jessica, with you and with you, Katie, as well. It really is lovely to see. And frankly, it's wonderful to see ESG and communications on this kind of stage. And I will share a little bit of my own personal background. I've been working kind of in and around the corporate responsibility space for longer than I'd like to admit, but at least 25 years. And I will say, earlier in my career on the agency side, it was much more of a detriment to a company if they were not taking care of that part of their reputation. But it really was not something that I think the investment community, if you were a public company, or the communities in which you operated in, generally thought a lot about. And certainly from the investor side, it wasn't something that was part of a company's valuation, unless it was something that was really detracting, that you were doing something, particularly negative. And so Wendy's, oh, thank you. Perfect. I've never been told to speak up. And so Wendy's, has been around for more than 50 years, very much a values-driven company. And when we started having this conversation around really formalizing what I would call corporate responsibility, I had some, folks ask, well, were we being irresponsible before? And the answer was no. We've always operated our business very, ethically and responsibly and been conscious of that. But the level of expectation around what that means and really bringing substance behind what is the impact of your enterprise, how do you bring that to life, and really how do you operationalize that across your entire enterprise, that was something that we started down the path really in about 2018 to 2019, and then Good Done Right was essentially the branding exercise that came out of that. And I will say it really was born of a need to prioritize and to focus. And because particularly when you're a large, well-known brand, as Target is and certainly as Wendy's is, we were being bombarded by all sorts of different stakeholders, issues, requests, questions. And what we realized was, we hadn't done the internal work to say, from a materiality perspective, and I'm sure you've heard about, that concept throughout, these 2 days, what is most important to Wendy's? And then conversely, what can Wendy's most materially impact? And what that allowed us to do was really focus on what we call the pillars of food, people, and footprint, and what are those areas where in some cases that we think we're doing a great job and need to continue the work, and in other areas where we felt like we had some gaps between where we needed to be and where we were today, and really set some pretty ambitious goals and commitments, and then publicly report against that to make sure that we were holding ourselves accountable. But what it also allowed us to do was to say no to some things and give ourselves the permission to say, there are some areas that may be a very important societal issue. It may be something that really needs to be addressed, but it's not something that Wendy's uniquely has a role to play in, either because of the type of business that we operate, the geographies in which we operate that business. And so Good Done Right for us is really a way to focus on the things that are most important to the business and where we can have the most material impact.
I'm sure I'm not alone. You've all heard the through line for each of these responses is genuinely about the business, your business. And so, Steve, credit to you and your team for talking about this in the context of the C-suite, who care the most about advancing the business. Katie, I'll come back to you. Talk a little bit, if you would, about how you've now seen Target Forward impacting and benefiting Target's business.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Well, first of all, I think for us, similar to what Liliana shared, our sustainability work is really a direct reflection of who we are and what we would articulate as our company purpose. And at Target, it's fairly simple. It's about bringing all families a little bit of joy in the everyday. And so our sustainability work is really intended to reflect that. And for us, and again, similarly, we really took a look at where we could have the biggest, most meaningful impact. And the sustainability strategy largely then centers on 3 areas of focus. And so in terms of how that is moving the business forward, I'll walk through the 3 areas and give you some examples. The first area is about designing and elevating sustainable brands. And so one of the really early bodies of work is a collection that we call Target Zero. And it's a collection of products and packaging that are designed to reduce waste. And we're making it really, really easy for our shoppers to locate those products by putting an icon right on them. And that icon lives across all of our digital properties as well. The second area of focus is about innovating to eliminate waste. And one of the biggest examples we have in that area is our net zero energy store, which was opened in Vista, California last spring. And when you talk about this being enterprise-wide, opening this store truly was a reflection of hundreds of different team members from across the company coming together with a singular vision in mind. And that store today will likely generate about 10% more renewable energy than what it takes to sustain its operations on an annual basis. And so again, just like a really, really clear early proof point. The third area of focus is about accelerating equity and opportunity for our guests, our team, and our communities. And an example there is a commitment we've made to spend $2 billion with Black-owned businesses over about a 3-year time horizon. And that commitment is opening up such fantastic opportunities. I look at how our design partnership portfolio has changed with that goal in mind. It's just phenomenal. And we're working with just a whole sort of new set of really diverse suppliers and vendors as a result. And so those are early examples of the work, but hopefully really crystallize how it makes an impact on the business now. And when I think about each one of those areas and the roadmaps that exist beneath our ambitions, certainly those are early wins to be proud of, but a lot more work to be done and hopefully a lot more progress to be made.
It's brilliant. We talk so often about the say-do gap in this category, don't we? And
Yeah.
you literally are showing how Target is closing that, and it's brilliant work. Jess, I promise we're coming to you in just a second. Liliana, I'd love to get a little bit of insight from you and maybe take us inside the boardroom or the virtual or otherwise, and talk a little bit. I mean, this is not just subject matter; it's business critical work that has to have full support from every member of the C-suite, regardless of what he, she, or they look after at the organization. What was that, and is that like for all of you at Wendy's?
Yeah, I think it absolutely has to be bought in at every level of the business, from leadership for sure, but also through your entire employee and other internal stakeholder base. At Wendy's, we have a large franchise community, which is an important part of our kind of internal Wendy's family as well. And I think that if you park sustainability or ESG in a corner, it may create some good initiatives, and it may, but I think particularly if times get tough at your company and there are levers that need to be pulled, it's the first thing to go because it's not integral to the business's success, and therefore, if it's not kind of delivering returns, it's not going to be something that's truly sustainable. Pardon the pun on that one. And I think at Wendy's the hurdle that we came over, and it really was, I think, just a combination of these different influences internally and externally, suggesting in lots of different ways that this was not a nice to do. This was a must do for our business. And I had the opportunity, I think, to help lead that, but not singularly in any way, shape, or form. And I will say that my closest partner on the ESG journey at Wendy's, other than our CEO, is our CFO, our Chief Financial Officer. And he and I, we spar and we challenge and we come at it from different perspectives, but have an equal appreciation for why it's important. He's looking at it from the perspective of how it's affecting the valuation of the business, from a risk management perspective, what we might be exposing ourselves to or not mitigating if we're not doing it well. Similarly, when I engage with our head of HR, our chief people officer, he's very focused on the people elements of our ESG strategy. Our head of development, who's responsible for building as many Wendy's restaurants across the world as we can in as short a period of time, understands that if a community wants a Wendy's and a community says, we're better when a Wendy's is here, that's going to make her job a heck of a lot easier than if we're fighting against that. And so I think a big part of this ESG journey has been identifying
that language that is going to resonate uniquely with each member of the business leadership team, with our board, and not changing the priorities, but essentially, I think we as communicators, we often can be kind of the Rosetta Stone of that. We can speak all of those different languages and bring all of those different parties to the table so that they can get aligned behind a singular, kind of goal and commitment, but they may be coming at it from a different perspective, and I think that's okay.
So Jess, I'm coming to all of you with this question, but we'll start with you. Liliana said the words risk management.
Yeah.
One of the core tenets of this kind of work is transparency, right? And so what I'd love to do is to offer the group a bit of advice from each of you. Obviously, just from your perspective as a consultant, what should brands be thinking about as it relates to transparency? And then if you push that a little further, not just when things are going well. What advice would you give a client, these or others, when transparency is necessary, but maybe the performance is not up to the commitment?
Yeah. I mean, we could have a whole panel on transparency because it's probably the topic that our teams are talking about the most right now, and it's come up a lot in these past 2 days. Transparency is at the epicenter of where ESG communications is headed. We are moving from announcing ambitions to advancing actions. And the companies who can make that transition while doing transparency well in the process are the companies who are going to lead and who are going to really come out ahead. And so, when we talk about transparency from where we sit, I mean, first of all, I have a unique advantage of having been on the nonprofit side before I came to the agency side. So that gives me some perspective to what those stakeholders have in mind when they expect transparency and where their level is. But really, it's about transparency, in my mind, is about the audience. I translate that into who are the audiences that we're speaking to. And that it can be very sticky because there are a lot of audiences to care about. There are so many issues. We've talked about it on other panels within the E, S, and the G, and you have to make priorities about how to communicate about those. But I think if you can reroute yourself, what the expectations are for the audience, and keep coming back to that, that can be a good guidepost. And the only other thing I'll add on that point about transparency is that I feel very lucky as a communicator right now because we actually have a lot of inputs available to us to understand what the audience needs. Companies are communicating more directly, Target, Wendy's being leaders in this space, communicating more directly with those audiences that really matter to them, whether that's investors, communities on the ground. We're opening up those conversations in a way that I don't think we've really done in the past. And that's incredibly valuable inputs. But then there's all kinds of other inputs from, B Corp is here today, and they offer great resources for companies. There's new frameworks that are getting aligned to. So being a partner and helping filter all these inputs together, weigh them, discuss them, debate them, that's really where I think we can be good counselors.
The same question, Liliana.
Yeah, I think it's a great one, and I will say that when you're in this type of role, if your desire is to make everybody happy, then you may not have a lot of good days, because there are different levels of kind of expectation and priority and importance that different stakeholders will place on your work. And I often think of it like the old fable of the tortoise and the hare. When I'm dealing with my internal stakeholders, they're like, "Why are you going so fast?" You're like the hare that's running down the track, and this is a lot, and we're going fast, and this is a lot of resources. And then when I'm dealing with some of our external stakeholders, it's like you are like the tortoise, and you're going so slow, and why aren't you doing more, and why can't we get there faster? And I think that the importance of transparency is to you establish the things that are important to you. You establish the cadence that you're going to report, either formally or informally, against those kind of those pillars, and be just very candid about what's going well, what may not be going as well as you would hope, and to the best that you can, why. One of the commitments we've made for instance, is to responsibly source our top 10 food and beverage categories by the year 2030. And that doesn't mean that we're irresponsibly sourcing those categories today. It means that we're setting for ourselves a series of environmental and social criteria against some really big rocks and really big categories to say we want to establish these criteria and really live to it over a period of time. As we're dealing with different stakeholders around that progress, I have to be very candid to say there are some pieces of that roadmap that's a layup. I know how we're going to do it. I've got it, in hand. We may not be totally there yet, but I can see the path. And there are other parts that are going to be a lot harder, and I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do it, but I know that we have the commitment and the resources to get there. I think that's appreciated. I think that what is really punished is when you try to move the goalposts and when you say, that doesn't look as good as we would like it to, and so we're just going to leave that out of our ESG report this year. I think that what is rewarded, I think, and appreciated is progress and not necessarily perfection.
Yeah.
How about you, Katie?
Boy, I am going to echo so much of what's been said because I think it's been well said. I think what comes to mind for me, it probably oversimplifies it, but it is, making sure that on that spectrum from commitment to action, you are showing progress. And, can't underscore enough the importance of moving to a place where that action can be proved out by financial grade data and reporting. Like, that's got to be a goal that we all put on the board and march to together. And I do think that sense of, you put it so well, of constant improvement and being really humble and honest in where we're at and speaking to it in that spirit. I think that goes the distance.
So, believe it or not, we have time for one more question as the time clock is showing us. This is deeply personal work, isn't it? For all of the good folks in this room, for the agencies and brands that we all represent, deeply, deeply personal. So we'll end with, we'll go right down the line again and give Katie the last word. Just tell these folks, and maybe it's a bit of your own story, but maybe some advice in terms of how we can all connect in a different way personally, and what you've gotten out of it, but why you also really love it. What is it that's connecting your personal brand to this important work?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you how this personal brand began. It began so early in my life that it was just something that was always there, that I cared about, and I set my sights on trying to help make the world a better place, and have been doing that through using, the scale and the platforms of many of the relationships that I've been able to fortunately build, in the corporate world. I think that for me, one of the greatest compliments that I'll get when I leave a room or when I have a meeting with a client is, those were really tough questions. And, sometimes you have to ask those really tough questions. And I think that has, for the most part, come from a place of appreciation. And when it necessarily hasn't come from a place of appreciation, that's been fine for me too. I have been fine to say, this is not the right partnership, because the expectation in this space is that you can answer these really tough questions that I'm asking and that others will ask of you. So I would just encourage everyone to keep asking tough questions.
Yeah, I think for me, maybe the encouragement that I would give is that this is still a very young discipline within the world, not just within communications. And I know that I am learning every day. I'm bringing people onto my team because I don't, they have expertise that I don't. I'm trying to surround myself with people who are farther ahead on the journey than I am or the company is, and no one is far behind. I think that this is an area where you can get really deep on the substance pretty quickly, because there's not decades of expertise in the world. And so I think there's a great opportunity, particularly if you're a little earlier in your career than maybe I am, to say, this really is something that is, communications has always been important to corporations, and it sounds a little trite, but truly I have never felt more valued, and my team has never felt, I think, more valued in terms of, tell us what we should be doing and how we need to be navigating this space. And so I think that I think about it the same way that I think about internal communications maybe 15 years ago, that it was something that was not really well appreciated, how important it was to have an employee base that was informed and aligned and helping a company along their mission. And today we almost take it for granted that is an important and necessary part of your comms function. I think ESG is that times 10. And I think there's so much opportunity to dig in where you find passion. I know for me, being able to go home and talk to my kids about what I did today and what type of work we're doing, the people's whose livelihoods it's helping, that's something that we spend too much time doing this to not do something that you can at the end of the day say I really feel good about what I accomplished today. So
probably a lot of similarities. So when I think about who I am first and foremost a communicator. I love being a communicator, and when I can pair that up with also being a catalyst, that gets me out of bed in the morning. And that's what this work is about. And when I think back, I've been at Target for about 12 and a half years, and when I think back on the work that makes me proudest, I think about the role that the communications team played in not only expressing our purpose and driving understanding of our purpose, but also helping the entire Target team put it into action. The communications team had a vital role in that, and that is a real point of pride for me. A few years later, we did similar work in articulating Target's culture, and again, not just putting it on a poster board, but actually helping the team rally around it. And we're a stronger company because of it. And again, just like such a huge point of pride. And this work falls directly in that same column. It will absolutely fortify and fuel our business, not for the near term, but for the long term. And I just think, wow, if I can be a part of that, if I can help drive that, if the team can have a meaningful impact on it, that's the stuff that careers are made of.
Well, this was all about the new C factor, and I think we are now learning that actually stands for catalyst. It was a brilliant way. Please join me in thanking these incredible leaders for their time. I also hope I don't have to remind you where you are having breakfast tomorrow and where you are preparing for the
French toast
holidays.
sticks are very good.
They
Thank
are
you all.
very good.
Thank you so much.
Fall Target collection right here.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all.